Hello everyone, today I'm back with another video where I would walk through a recent project of mine. And about a couple weeks ago I released a new remix called Next to You by Rammor. And so I thought it'd be a good opportunity for me to just break it down, how I made the track, sort of inspiration behind it, and some of the tips and tricks that perhaps may be useful for other producers. So this one is sort of like a deep house remix, and to jump right in, I think I should probably start with the vocal, which I was sent the original stems of. So here we have the vocals. I placed them in a bus of its own, and that means that I can process them as a group. So it's just solo vocals and see how it sounds.
When we're close, I wish that it was alive.
So obviously the vocals are already really good. The only sort of additional stuff I added to the vocals are a bit more layers. So there's a layer which is a bit higher, so an octave up, and then an octave down as well. And then I have this sort of filtered sound. So it's basically just a very, very tight EQ, a bit of Valhalla reverb, quite a lot actually, and some direction mixer just to make this one a bit wider. And then on the sum itself, I've added, most importantly, a sidechain, so that when a kick is playing, for example, in the second break here, it just ducks a little bit of the volume to give a bit of groove to it. And then I've got the vocals, and afterwards I had to sort of find a melody for it. And at the time I was playing around with a lot of vocal chops, so I decided to do the same for this one as well. So what I did was I just basically took a slice of the vocal like that, and then from there I can just drag that into its own sampler track. This is what I have. It's in the slice mode, Logic's own quick sampler. That means that I can play them on the keyboard as such. And then on here just a low cut, and then the most important is this delay. It's Baby Comeback. It's a free plugin actually. And then obviously we have the sidechain as usual. It plays quite a simple pattern really, but with the delay, the echo actually, it just fills out the space and gives this really cool sort of sound. So this one is sort of the key motif of the track, and it plays throughout actually in different forms. We've got a simpler version. And this one plays in the break section, the intro section. And then this one is a highly sort of filtered version, and then as it builds to the drop in here, it starts to open up a bit more. And this just helps to tease the vocal chop, the main melody, and then also just build towards the drop. So from there, I had really the key elements, and then I just had to build the other fundamental sounds, which are basically the bass line. For the break, I've chosen a simple respace. And then in the drop section, it's more of a rolling bass line. Actually with a Reese layer on top as well, with the low cut, to not mess with the sub. And this rolling bass line pattern is a bit more arpeggiated, so I took a few notes, an octave up, and together with the kick, it sounds a bit like this. And then with all the drums together. So this is a really simple track. I didn't want it to overcomplicate things. I just want to keep them really nice, simple, and groovy. So the drums itself is not. There's an open hat, a couple of clap layers, pan just slightly to the left to the right, and then there's another drop clap, 2 layers actually. And as you might notice, some of them do have a sidechain there, just 18%, just to reduce a little bit that transient, just let the kick shine through a bit more. And then some other sort of more ear candy type drums, but also this loop, which is actually one of my own loops from other productions of mine, and this is something I think I would also suggest other producers to do, which is just to sometimes save your loops or your presets so that you can use in other productions, and it really helps to speed up the flow of things. And if you would like, you can use the first link in the description to grab a sample pack of the sounds I've used in my own productions as well. So now that we have the main melody, the bass line, we need some mid-range elements. So one of them is the saw, which actually consists of 3 layers. We've got one a bit more centered, and then a few more sort of wide sound. There's not a lot of processing on them. It's just a bit of side compression, just to glue those sounds together. EQ, important to cut out all the low end, and then obviously a side chain, but also I've also added this sort of shape to it, and just gives it a bit of that groove instead of that straight bit of movement in the sound. And on top of this, there's an ARP. And then there's sort of this plucky sound, a bit of that deep house kind of style. And I've got a support melody on top of it as well, with the high cut actually set to 1.8 kilohertz. This just helps to ensure that it doesn't really fight with the vocal chop I've got. And this is another simple pattern. It's preset fine actually as well. Then I've got one more layer. It's another sort of ARP melody that follows the chord progression. And then in the second half of the drop, I've then switched it up a little bit. So I took out the vocal chop, just replaced it with the simpler pattern, and then I've added these sort of gated elements. So this one adds a little bit different sort of drive to the song. And the way that I've achieved this is through one is the kilohertz gate plugin. Without it, it's just this straight sort of sustained note, bit of trance type of element. And also, just to mention as well, I used some of the effects, some Atmos and some pads from the original, as well as some drums as well, just to help with the groove, but also give the remix a little bit of the original in there as well. And the effects sound effects are quite simple, just a bunch of white noise, impacts, just to give it a bit more energy. And then if we jump first, the second drop, it's similar to the first drop. But I've got the gate sounds actually playing from the start. And then in the second part, there's the vocal actually comes back in. So then, in order to avoid some clashes, I've took the vocal chops to be the simpler pattern. Another tip that you could do is actually to EQ out some of the lead elements. In this one, I felt that there wasn't too many things clashing, so I think it was fine as it was. So I didn't take any sort of EQ in the automation. But in some of the other productions, you might see that either elements are removed or they're EQ'd out just to make room for other things like vocals where you want that to be the main priority. And then to complete the other sections of the track, in the intro, some playing the chords, so like a piano-ish sound, and then this quiet pad sound, some atmos provided by the guitar and piano with a lot of reverb on it, and a low cut as well, just to give space for the bass to breathe as well.
This much back and forth can be good for us, good for us.
And when we get to the chorus section, some of the drop elements starts to come in. So we've exchanged the piano sounds for a bit more of the a wider, more saw type pads. And this sound comes in, which is the same sound I used in the drop, as well as a sort of piano kind of accent. And then once we get to the build section, this lead comes in with an automated high frequency, so it slowly opens as it builds in the drop and then releases. And then in the second phrase here, in order to keep the energy going, I decided to keep the kick and bass groove on top of the vocals. And as you might see here, I've actually duplicated the channel of the instruments that are playing the bass line, and I've labeled them name with vocals. So this just means that despite being the same sound, they're actually processed slightly differently. So instead, they've got a bit more of an EQ, a bit more filtering, just to make room for the vocals. For example, this one, there's a lot of EQ around this 800, 900 hertz range, where I thought that the frequency was quite present. So then this just means that the vocals could shine through the mix. And also, instead of playing the full kick, I actually filtered the kick as well. So a little bit of low cut, just to lower the energy of the kick a little bit, if that makes sense.
I feel like I don't belong. Is this what it takes to get over you? Is this
And in the second build-up, I've had this sound here that actually pans from left to right, so it gives a little bit of that width and illusion there. And then this sound, I actually have a reverb automation, so that slowly gives it a bit of this washed out sort of feel as it builds to the drop. So it reduces the harshness a little bit and just kind of gives it that wide sort of build up feeling where the sounds sort of fading away and then the big instruments, the big sounds hit in the drop. And also for this track, like a lot of my other productions, I have a gain automation in the actual master track, about a 2 dB drop just before the main volts drop hits, and that just helps to give it a little bit of that volume trick, just for the drop to be a bit more impactful. And sometimes I also like just to play with octaves a little bit, so in the second half of the drop, this gated sound goes up an octave. So it just gives a bit more contrast, builds the energy as well. So this was actually quite a speedy production. Once I've got the main sort of vocal shop ideas, everything sort of built itself together quite quickly. And perhaps let's just talk a little bit about the master chain. What I have here is actually a match EQ. So this is a really nice tool where you can get a reference track that is similar in style to your remix, and then compare your mix and the mix of that track, and then it will create sort of an EQ curve that tries to mimic that sound. And but you don't usually apply it. Generally it's 25%, which is already quite a lot, but it just helps bring your mix up to quality a little bit quicker. Another EQ just to cut very highs, very lows, a bit of tweaking here, where I thought the sound needed a bit more sort of clarity in this section, and a bit of decrease. Felt it was a little bit muddy in this section. And then a compressor, very little amount of OTT. I had some saturation, and then finally the Ozone 9, pretty much, a bit of EQ again, a bit tweaking, very minor, and then a limiter to get it up to loudness. And then I always use span just to check everything is as it should be. It's a free plugin, so I would recommend everyone to have this one. And then lastly, you might have noticed that there's a second section. It's the extended mix section, and what it is basically it's the same thing, copied over with the extended intro and outro section, used only for DJing pretty much. Sometimes you can find yourself making the extended mix first and then cutting it down to make the radio version. But in this case, for songs in this genre, I typically tend to make the radio edit first, and then using some of the elements, tease them in the intro as it builds towards the actual main section of the song. Yeah, and this is pretty much it for the track. A general overview into how I made this remix. It's already out now, so you can go check it out on all streaming platforms. And like I said, if you're interested in some of the sounds I used, you can check out the links in the description, and you might get yourself a sample pack including all the sounds I use in some of my productions. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.